when we think about our students and preparing them for whatever lies after graduation, it's work experiences that typically set our students apart. And that can look a lot of different ways. And I say work experiences, but certainly it could be research, it could be internship, it could be many, many different things, but typically some sort of experience that goes alongside their academic journey. At ASU, we all know we're giant. We have over 190,000 students. And a lot of times when we think about those experiences, our default is thinking about paid internships for students, but there's a lot of barriers that come in doing a paid internship. They're very competitive, the time it takes just to go through the application process and prepare yourself for that. On top of if a student's already working or managing many other responsibilities, to then say, hey, you should do an internship on top of all of that is a lot to ask for our students. So we've been looking at that student experience and thinking about all of the menu of options available to students. So one that came forth was student employment. So typically we employ about 8,000 to 10,000 students on an annual basis. I think we all know a lot is happening in the news, so that number has been fluctuating quite a bit with budgets. But then our relationship, we've actually been working with Alyssa and Ripen for a few years as well. Mostly on the faculty side is historically what we've been doing, where Ripen really serves as a kind of a matchmaking platform for a marketplace of experiences. So we encourage faculty as they have group projects or the opportunity to build group projects, and instead of having a prompt that you came up with on your own, you can actually partner with an employer from this marketplace to bring in a real employer project into the classroom. We've been doing that for a few years, and then we were presented with this opportunity to kind of take that and go to another space, which is this brand new marketplace, which we're calling the project portal, where ASU departments are actually able to post projects and students can go in on their own and explore what types of options are available for them. And this was really a culmination of all of the work we've been doing with faculty, getting more organized in the student employment space, is really developing basically a whole new way for students to be able to work at ASU. It's not a long-term commitment like a student employment position, but it's still a great way for departments to get work done. So perhaps you don't have a student employment line anymore, or you don't have necessarily enough work to constitute hiring on a full student employee. This is a great way to get a different kind of help in your office and support that you need, and to tap into really unique talent that you otherwise might not have either. It's really great for students, obviously more opportunities to work and get paid. But also for them they could already be working with the university or they could not be, but it's a way for them to say, maybe this is what I'm doing in my student employment role all the time, but I see this other project. I'm a student that creates websites, but that's not something I get to do in my day-to-day. Now I get to go onto this portal and actually do a really targeted project of designing a website that I can add on to my resume and exercise that skill set a lot more, while also helping us as ASU departments get done what we need to get done too. I think it's a great thing I think we all have those projects that kind of get set on the back burner sometimes of like, if we had enough time, or, maybe when things slow down, we can do this thing and get it off the ground. The project portal is a great way to actually get that done and not have that project sit on the back burner forever. So we're going to talk through how we actually operationalize and make that happen. One of the things I'll say is that we've been piloting this, so we need feedback. We need to understand different use cases as well. So we do have something structured and set up right now. That's not to say we can't be flexible as we move forward to understand what needs are. And so right now we've been operating in these buckets or 15 or 30-hour projects. So when students go on and when you post a project, you pick what type of kind of category best suits your needs. But even from that, we can have conversations of adjusting. I always like to pitch too, you can use your P card for payment. One of the things I want to put out here is that this is not being operated through your typical hiring process with ASU and going through HR. It's all done through this Ripen platform. And when you onboard, you're entering P card information and you're paying Ripen. Ripen then pays the student. So it's very easy to do this. It's not going through that same process where a student has to go and do the paperwork that we have to at ASU. They're walked through what they need to submit for Ripen. But I will say, like, as far as bringing student talent on, I know it can be kind of a month-long process sometimes, just to hire a student. It's much more expedited in what we're doing, and using the P card makes things a lot easier. If you don't have access to a P card, we can help you out with that too. So the next part I wanted to share, I touched on this a little bit. So we do try to categorize into two types of projects. We call them general projects and specialized projects. And so when we think about general, it's that students don't need an advanced skill set in something. So a good example of that is if you have a lot of student-facing content that you're like, you know what, this has been sitting there for a couple years. We need to make edits and refresh it and make sure it's still relevant. That's a great kind of project to have as a general project, because a student doesn't need to come in necessarily knowing anything or having a certain skill set. They're using their student perspective to help with something. Now, I will say something like designing and building a website, doing data analysis, things like that, that would be a specialized project. And so you'll see the breakdown for the cost there. I will say we did align this with the student employment pay rates too. So if you're wondering how did this come about, we looked at the pay bands for the hourly pay for each of those types of roles, where we looked at the different categories of your basic category of a student worker one. And then for the specialized, we bumped it. So that's where those payment differences came into play. And like I said, it is very easy to post projects. You can post something and have it done in that semester, even sooner. And we've seen a lot of really quick, immediate needs being sufficed through that. And then, like I said, onboarding is very simple too. We're just sharing information here, but you'll be able to onboard on your own at any time, and it takes very little time to do that as well. And you can see here we have a great little thing from an academic affairs area, was able to get social media off the ground in just a few weeks too. So very quickly, I'm going to go through this and I'm going to let Alyssa kind of take over and actually show us Ripen. But I do want to quickly touch on that there is an onboarding that departments take. It just talks through some of the policy and best practices to keep in mind as you get ready to post a project. I will say Ripen has a lot of tools to help too. My colleague, we've posted projects each semester we've been doing this, and she was able to post 2 projects, I think, in 15 or 20 minutes, because there's a lot of support through some of the AI tools and templates that are used. So if you even have just like kind of a general idea, the platform can help you really map out what you want to do. And like I said, it's students are just going to go on, they're going to look at the projects available, they're going to indicate that they're interested and apply, and then you can kind of decide how you want that process to move forward. If you want to do a screening, how in-depth of a screening do you want to do of those students to make sure that they have the qualifications that you need. But I will say, in terms of like what makes a good project, really clear purpose and outcomes. Like, you should have a very defined deliverable, understanding what is the student responsible for. Are you having check-ins with that student? What are some of those milestones that they need to complete? But also making sure that a student would get something out of it too. So obviously, as a department, you're getting really good work completed, but making sure that a student is able to really highlight it as some sort of experience that they want to, potentially promote to other future employers too. And then, of course, like, you need to provide feedback, what's really well, what could use some additional work, and making sure that you're having some of that reflection time with students. We do have resources available for that. But we do like to call it out of it's not student learning until there's that reflection point. And so while I am saying like this is a really easy thing to do, you can get work done very quickly. I do want you all to be very aware that if we want this, and we do, we want this to be a learning opportunity for our students to invest a little bit of extra time with those students to make sure that they know what they've done well, where they have areas of growth, and how they should be talking about it in the future as well. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to stop sharing my screen too, because I'm sure you're like, let me just see what this is and get in there. So I'll hand it over to Alyssa to show it.
Sounds good. I'm just going to get my screen up and loaded here. So what I'm going to walk through today is what the process of both signing up for a Ripen account is going to look like, and then what the process of selecting an experience and then creating that project to apply to that experience looks like. Throughout the slides that I'm going to show you, you are going to see what the platform will look like. I will also say that this slide show that we have here is available for you to review at any time. We also do have another video recording of this if you would just like to see the walkthrough of what the process looks like. At any time, you are also welcome to reach out to the program support email that we'll provide for you. I will speak for Amanda and team to also say that they're extremely supportive as well. So should you need help with creating your project or navigating anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. So our process that we'll be following as we start thinking about what kinds of projects we might have and students we're going to connect with. The very first thing that we're going to do when using the Ripen platform is we'll create a department profile. The department is going to be just the name of your department, and you will put down your name as the contact point. And this is what students will see as information when they're looking at projects to apply to. This is going to help them understand kind of what bucket the projects fit into and also assist with determining where they would like to collaborate. You're going to then request access to the ASU portal. You will be automatically accepted. There will be a few questions that you'll need to answer. You'll be able to take a look at the experiences. There will be 4 in total. One general 15-hour experience and one 30-hour general experience, one 15-hour specialized experience, and one 30-hour specialized experience. When you click on these, you'll be able to then go to the stage of creating your project. You'll be able to use the AI generator that we have as part of our platform, or alternatively, you can use a template. Rather than go through all of the next phases, I feel like this is probably an appropriate time to show you what these things look like. The very first stage that we are going to do is create your profile first. We'll be able to provide that link to you if you'd like to get started and set up. Just keep in mind for timing that entering the project portal is going to happen sometime in January, probably early January, once folks return back from break. However, you are welcome to get your employer profile set up well ahead of time. When you get started with creating your account, very simple. If you've ever created an account on a portal before, it's exactly as you would expect. Your name, email address, creating your password. You will also be asked to include your job title at the department you're working with, as well as a phone number. This can be the department's phone number if you'd like, and then selecting categories that align with there are areas that you're interested in, but areas that would define kind of what the department has work in. You'll input the department name as well as the website, as well as the location. This is information that helps the folks who are reviewing the requests that come in to the department portal to confirm that you actually are a member of a department. After you go through that process, this is where you'll be provided with the invite link in early January. And when you click that link, you will be brought to this page, this next page. It will say request access to portal. In which case you will click this and be brought to the Portal Pass application. You are just asked to confirm that you are a representative of a department at ASU. And once you confirm that, you have automatic access to the portal. You will always be able to access the portal by going to the ASU department content in that navy search bar on the left-hand side where it says portals. And you'll see it very clearly labeled as the ASU Student Employment Project Portal. Something to keep in mind at this stage is you will have also above in that navy left-hand search bar is you're going to have my projects and my teams. These are things that you'll be able to use to navigate to any projects that you have created. So, for example, your department might have a project that's suitable for a general 15-hour experience. You might also have a project that's suitable for a specialized 30-hour experience. These, of course, are going to be two different things, and this will be the easiest way to navigate between those two projects. Any teams, any student teams that you are working with, you'll be able to access by going to My Teams, and that's just a direct view to all of the students that you're working with. There will be a number of different ways to kind of organize the material that you're working with. And also, if at any time you want a refresher on how to navigate through or organize your material on the platform, I would encourage you to reach out to me. This is what it looks like to see the portal experiences. So we've been talking about the general 30-hour, general 15-hour, specialized 15, and specialized 30. When you go to the portal experiences, you're going to see all four of them listed. It would be probably best to, at this point in the process, have a good sense of where your project fits in. So again, Amanda briefly touched on the 15 hours being, of course, they're shorter in nature, probably easily completed over the course of a month or so. And then the difference between the general and the specialized is general has to do with things like maybe admin tasks or social media or content creation, things like this. There's technical skills involved, which might be website building, complex data analysis. That's going to fit more into the specialized experiences. If you do have questions about which experience your project would best fit, that would be something I'd encourage you to chat with Amanda and team about. But once you have a good sense of which experience your project would fit within, we're going to go through the process of actually creating your project. So this is what Amanda had referenced earlier in terms of being able to create these projects. Again, it takes probably about 15 to 20 minutes total, and we're going to do so by clicking the Create New Project button. Again, it's important to remember to do this through the correct experience first, as we're going to create this project to match with the experience. This is a general kind of view of what the AI generator tool looks like. You can input just a few sentences about what your project goal is. The example that I've written here is the department needs assistance with creating engaging blog posts for an academic audience that details current research activities in health sciences. You could also input a few details about how long you expect obviously we have the hour long commitment, so it's 15 or 30. However, you could estimate how long certain tasks might take. You can talk about any other needs that you might have if they're specific. You really can do just a few sentences, or you can put in up to a paragraph. And then this is what the AI generator has created out of my prompt. We would encourage you to review just for accuracy and ensure that the details are correct. Once you go through the entire the entire editing process, the next page that you are brought to, will ask you to input a few details about the level of knowledge, as well as the estimated number of hours. Of course, in this case, it's 15 or 30, and then the skills that you might want to emphasize. I'm just seeing that there's something in the chat here. Yep, Ali has asked if you do have questions, please put them in the chat. The next phase after you've actually created that project is the matching. It may seem kind of backwards that we have entered through the experience, then created the project, and now we need to match it. But it kind of keeps things organized so that you don't have to create your project first and then try to find the experience that you want to match it with and then go through the process. Ultimately, there's these 3 steps no matter what. The order that we've laid them out in is probably going to be the easiest and most straightforward way. If there's any extra details that you want to input, for example, if you have a maximum number of teams that you can accept. So in this case, students are working individually, so teams would be individuals. So let's say you have capacity for 2 students, each working individually, you would put 2, where it says maximum number of teams. You will then be asked to answer a few quick screening questions for the experience, which are just that you've read the terms and conditions, that you would respond and review learner applications within 5 business days, just your understanding that learners can only complete the one project, and that they may be applying to multiple projects. So this is good context to have. Of the students that come in, they will be taking a look at all of the projects that are in the ASU Student Employment Project Portal. And so they may have multiple applications at the same time. So this is why we have a double-sided acceptance process. Students will receive your offer should you decide to extend them one, and then they will also have to confirm. Finally, you'll just click the send request button, fairly straightforward. And this is the phase where we would go through inputting the payment details using P-card or whichever other method you would prefer. It's important that you click accept, which is the point that's going to prompt you to input those details. Key piece of information as well, the funds will be taken through Stripe, which is a payment processor. So Ripen does not actually have access to these funds. We simply facilitate the connection between you and Stripe. Once the student completes the project, what you've given your confirmation that the deliverables are up to standard. We take a look and manually review their work logs to ensure that everything's in place. Once that's all checked out, that's when we would create an invoice and you would be able to review it, confirm that payment is due for the student, and then the student receives the payment from Stripe. So that's a little bit about how that payment process works. The next steps are written out here for you, so I will read through them. Students do join the portal at around maybe 2-3 weeks after departments are allowed access to the portal. That gives you time to get your projects created, and then students will come in to apply. So it'll be normal to have about a 2-3 week lag after you create your project between when students will start applying. When they do apply, you will receive a notification that you have an application. And keep in mind that there's going to be multiple students applying. So it is possible that you could receive multiple applications. So we would ask that you review these within 5 business days and assess as soon as possible before selecting the student team. From there, you would collaborate on your project over the course of however many weeks, as long as the student completes the 15 or the 30 hours. It is up to you to communicate and collaborate with the student, as it is their responsibility to communicate and collaborate with you to determine a meeting cadence that works well, and then any other points in time where you would want deliverables submitted to you. For example, a rough draft or interim work. And as I'd mentioned before, once the project is complete, so that's when the student has submitted the final deliverable on the platform and finished the final survey, After you have given your feedback, then we do our manual review just to confirm that the deliverable is in fact the deliverable you were looking for. And that's when the invoice will be triggered. And once you review it and approve, that's when payment comes from Stripe to the student. So this is quite a lot of information all at one point without actually having the portal access to kind of play around with. I would encourage you to sign up for a Ripen account, a Ripen employer account, which is what will kind of synonymous with the department. From there, in early January, you are going to receive that invite link to the Student Employment Project portal. In the meantime, if you do have any questions about gaining Ripen access, please do reach out to me. The email that is going to be used for this program is asu-projectportal@ripen.com. Or you can always click, there's going to be a little avocado icon with a question mark in it at the bottom right corner in the Ripen platform, and you can chat in, and that will go directly to my team, and we'll be able to reach back out to you. So I'll ask if there's any questions at this point in time, and you're welcome to come off mute and ask, or throw them in the chat. And we will again we'll have a little bit more information about what it's going to look like to navigate the portal as a department once January arrives.
And I'll just note too, in terms of like the payment process and paperwork, I know every department, runs a little bit differently depending on your business operations, but you are putting the P card information on the front end. It's not actually being charged until the very end, until you say, yes, that student should get paid. And then after that, you'll get the invoice, which then you would do whatever paperwork process that your business office wants you to do with a P card charge.
Thanks for clarifying that, Amanda.
We do have a question. Can students have more than one project at a time? No. We don't have that right now. We did turn that off. We haven't had we're at a pretty small scale right now. And that actually leads me to another point I wanted to make is we are trying to be really aware of not flooding this project portal with so many students that it becomes overwhelming for departments that have a project. So we are still very much in kind of a not quite initial pilot, but a more advanced pilot stage where we're trying to get more departments to post projects so we can keep introducing more and more students into this portal. We know that students want work. We know that they want these types of opportunities. We're just trying to be really mindful that the goal is for departments to be able to get quick access to work. It's not going to be quick if you all of a sudden have 100 students that are applying to your project. So we are trying to be mindful of that. And I will say that if there are particular projects with very specific skill sets that you're looking for, we have in the past actually done specific email campaigns out to audiences of students that should fit that skill set. So what I mean by that, if you're looking for someone that's doing like user experience design, we would actually look at those academic programs and send an email saying, hey, there's projects in this project portal that you can get paid to do that align with what your academic background is. So we are trying to be mindful of that. And for you all, if you are having something that has a particular skill set that you're not seeing students necessarily come through with, to let us know so we can help get the word out there in a strategic way. It's also totally fine. Like we know that there's some folks that are faculty or have student connections already, and they're like, I want to connect with those students that I might already know. They can onboard and you can help them, find your project and navigate to it as well and apply for it. So however you want to do that, just I do just want to put out there, don't expect the same. I'll say I know there's departments that experience tons and tons of applications for their student employment jobs, and it's almost a whole nother endeavor just to review that. You shouldn't experience that here. And I see another question about if you have someone in mind for a project, you can review all applicants. You should. I mean, it's not the same process of how you have to submit justification. I would say, like, certainly if you have a student in mind for your project, you can kind of move forward with them. But just be mindful of other students that might also have that skill set. You can have I guess this is another way to word it, is that you can hire more than one student for a project. So it doesn't have to be a one-to-one ratio, but a student can't work on multiple projects at the same time, if that makes sense. So if you're like, I have this website I want built and I want 3 students to work on it, you can do that. You can't hire a student that's already doing another project, though.
I've just put in the chat for any folks who might be looking to get started on signing up early. Again, this is not going to be early access to applying. This is simply just if you want to get your profile up and created, you're welcome to navigate to this link.
Alrighty. You can certainly keep asking questions. We're gonna go into timeline, so Ollie's gonna share with that as I pull that back up for us.
Yeah, yeah, the good thing about creating an account or the process that Alisa just went through, it is much easier by doing than probably listening to Alisa explain it. Because we've had a lot of departments that have done this process without asking for any help from us. So it's pretty streamlined and straightforward. Uh, but the good thing probably you can start creating an account. That would be a very good first step to take. And then you can wait till January if you want to have your project figured out and posted on the platform. But we have a standard project scheduled or timeline here. You don't necessarily have to strictly follow these timelines because we know for a fact that there are certain departments that are early planners that have figured out what their project details are, what are their needs and everything. So if you have everything figured out in the early stages and you want your project to be posted earlier, and not necessarily wait till February or March, I mean, it's totally fine to have your project posted at any time within these time frames. Just be very mindful of what the deadline is. You can have your project posted as early as you want it around January. So you don't necessarily have to strictly follow these timelines. These are just standard timelines that we put in place so to help you navigate this process in terms of the timeline that we have for the spring semester. So within December to January, currently what we are doing right now is we expect department to attend sessions that we have, like information or webinars, and take the first step of completing their onboarding process. The onboarding process, you can find a link on the webpage, the Student Employment Project Portal webpage, where you can go through the onboarding process. It's an articulate module that's just about 5 minutes for you to just understand more details about how this process works. And from there, it's going to take you to Ripen to create your account. So you can, at this stage, start drafting and finalizing your internal project. There are templates and the AI tools that we initially mentioned that you can use to develop these ideas. We do expect departments. You can have your project posted. Project posting starts around January 19th. That is the standard date, but we are still flexible. If you have your project ideas figured out and you want it posted a little earlier, probably first week of classes commencing in spring, we are flexible. The platform will be open to departments to start posting projects around second week of January. So feel free to come in at any time after the break and you can start having your project posted. Around February, we expect departments. That is the time we expect a lot of posting to happen by a lot of other departments. The templates are there, the walkthrough, and any support that you might need from us or Ripen, there is always, we're always open and happy to help you go through the process. Around March, students select students and kick off. This can be done also in February, depending on how early you post your project. But if you still want to go with this timeline, it's totally fine. The discretion is with the department and the students to decide based on your different schedules and the meetings that you have with the students to decide whatsoever works for you and the students. So the discretion is with the department to decide on how that works. but we expect some of this work to be happening within this time frame. So around March, have your reviewed applications and ripen, conduct brief interviews if you want to, or you can just probably just screen the students via some of the documents that they present on the platform when applying for a project. You can do your screening through that process as well. If you feel like you have a couple of qualified students that are best fitting for the job and you probably need to screen them further, if you want, you can have a Zoom session with them and make a final selection, then select whoever is the student that you think is best ideal for your project. So you don't have to necessarily conduct interviews. You can only do that if you feel like it's necessary. So we expect students working on projects around April. That is the standard timeline. Student can start working on the project around February, depending on how early you post your project. But just keep in mind that all projects should be completed by the deadline that we have here around May. So we have project to be posted around Project start posting ideally start around January 19th to March 13th. So at the 13th of March, we expect all departments to have posted all their projects. We sometimes have issues around department posting very close to the deadline. Like we had a faculty member that had a project posted at the last week of November and for fall projects, which were ending in December 5. So what we ended doing is we had to push that project for the spring semester. So we strictly advise that you have your project posted at least on the last day of March 13. So within those period from March 13, there is enough time for the student to work on the project until the end of the semester. So keep those dates in mind. Around April, May, it's just the timeline, whatever schedule you decide, how many hours you want the student to be working. Just don't let them exceed. If they're international students, we should be mindful of how many hours they are working on a weekly basis. So some of them might have other student employment jobs on campus and probably expected to work 40 hours or 20 hours per week. So they can probably work on their other jobs and let's say 18 hours if it's 20 hours and have them work on the student employment project for 2 hours in a week. So just be mindful if you are working with international students that they are keeping those timelines intact. Around May, we expect reviews to be done around the student work and deliverables to be completed. There is a process also for supervisors or department leads. That is just for you to ensure that all of the deliverables are completed by the students. There are exit surveys at the end of the program, of the project. So students should submit those exit surveys as well as department supervisors. And once that is complete, you approve the students' hours and process comments via the P cards that you input when putting your project details. So just complete those processes and complete short feedbacks and exit surveys. And if necessary, mostly we might reach out to some department, or if you're interested in providing testimonials at the end of the project. So it can be done in different ways. Probably we might be thinking about having videos, short videos for testimonials, but we can also have you just like what we are seeing on the screen here, the School of Cronkite Communication, the supervisor was talking about the fresh insight that students brought to the project about their outreach campaign. So there are different ways that we can do these testimonials, but these are some of the standard dates and timelines that we have, but you have your discretion to have your project posted earlier, and you can probably finish all work around March, depending on how early you post your project. So let's just keep that in mind. And we're always flexible and ready to help at any point in time.
Yeah, we try to keep an overall schedule to one, so folks are moving along at a pace to, get the work done, but also support the student. But it's also helpful for our team to be able to help monitor and come alongside as needed. You'll probably get a poke from Melissa if you participate, just checking in here and there. Because if activity isn't happening with the project, like we will follow up. But it's helpful for us to kind of be on the same schedule. But we also try not to interfere with like once finals comes up, we want that work to be wrapped up too, to ensure that our students can focus on their, wrapping up their semester successfully. But like I said, and Ali's been saying, this is a pretty dynamic timeline. We have basically a window that opens of like, okay, you can start posting now, and here's your deadline to post. Obviously, the sooner you start, the more time those projects can be spread out. So the later you post, you have to keep that in mind. If you have a 30-hour project and you're waiting until a certain point, you really need to work with that student to ensure that they're fulfilling the hours that they have committed to. And also a note on that tracking for hours for our international students. The onus is on the student to track that and communicate it with their supervisor if they are employed in a position. That's not something that you necessarily need to log, but it is a good conversation just to have on the front end of asking, hey, are you employed at the institution already? If so, make sure your supervisor is aware and that you're adjusting your hours as needed and appropriate, but you don't necessarily have to keep a separate log or anything like that. That's just for the student to be aware of. And the responsibility really falls on them too for that. Cool. So we're gonna wrap up in just a second. I did want to share some examples of what some other departments have done in the past. I think this is probably one of the more challenging aspects of like, wow, this portal's really great, but what should I post for my project? Some of you already came ready with one, so that's awesome. But these are some past examples of where we've had students create infographics where they were able to get all the data that they needed and design some really nice infographics. We had some students do some benchmarking research. I think that's a good project that probably has fallen on the back burner for these staff members a lot, and was able to get them connected with students that were able to help with that. We had New College actually help with a resource site, so they were able to help design a website there as well. And then another group of students that helped with a data dashboard as well, of utilizing R and Python, and being able to create some visualizations. At Work Plus, we've had students work on projects as well. This is also my shameless plug I'm gonna put in there. We have nominations open. We do an of the year for working learners. We have a couple different categories, and then we do a supervisor of the year. We used to have our team actually manually review all of the nominations and remove any pronouns or things that could be identifying. We actually were able to use the project portal, and we hired a student that wrote code to anonymize that automatically. And it's going to save us hours and hours of work. And that was a really simple and easy to formulate project that I'm actually going to probably work with that student on some other things too that we're looking to do. But one of our own team members didn't have that, capacity or knowledge, but we were able to see like, hey, can you do something with this and make it easier for our team? So they were able to do that. But I just wanted to share that as one of our own personal examples too.